The massive holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, casting eerie blue light across the faces of dozens of alien species. Ambassador Zethkri's eyes narrowed as he studied the footage his reconnaissance drones had captured near Jupiter. His scaled hands trembled slightly as he activated the emergency beacon that would summon every council member within 3-star systems. "This cannot be real," whispered Councillor Tice, her crystalline form refracting the hologram's light into rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. The serpentine Naga representative coiled tight around her floating platform, her head swaying. In disbelief, the footage showed something that shouldn't exist. Massive construction yards orbited Jupiter's largest moons, each one stretching for hundreds of kilometers. But it wasn't the size that made Zethkri's blood run cold, it was what the humans were building. Inside them, according to our intelligence networks, Zethkri began, his voice echoing through the chamber's translation systems. These were supposed to be colony ships. The Terran Integration Treaty specifically states that humanity would focus on peaceful expansion and trade vessels for the next 50 standard years. A low growl rumbled from the Assini delegate's throat. Commander Grax stood nearly 3 meters tall, his bear-like features twisted in confusion. "Those things are bigger than our entire battle cruiser fleet. Look at the weapon mounts. I count at least 40 heavy plasma cannon positions on just the visible side." The hologram rotated slowly, revealing more details that made several council members gasp. The human vessels were unlike anything in galactic military doctrine. Most species built their warships long and narrow, designed for speed and maneuverability. These human constructs were massive, blocky, and covered in so many weapon systems they looked like flying fortresses. "The power signatures don't make sense either," added Dr. Vex High, the insectoid science officer whose compound eyes could process data streams faster than most computers. "These readings suggest their engines can generate thrust equivalent to a small star's output. That's physically impossible with known technology." Zethkri paused the hologram on a particularly disturbing image. One of the human ships was nearly complete, and weapon testing was clearly underway. The energy beams being fired at target asteroids didn't just destroy them, they completely vaporized chunks of rock the size of small moons. "There's more," Zethkri said grimly. Advancing to the next set of images, our long-range scanners detected at least 12 shipyards like this throughout their system. If each one is producing vessels of this size, they could have a fleet capable of conquering half the galaxy within a standard year, finished Admiral Korath of the Hegemony Defense Force. The veteran warrior's 6 arms gestured to different sections of the hologram. "Look at these shield generators. The power requirements alone would drain most planetary energy grids." What troubled the Council most wasn't just the ship's apparent capabilities, it was how casually the humans seemed to be building them. The construction crews worked in regular shifts. There were no military guards visible, and the whole operation looked like any other industrial project. The humans were building weapons of mass destruction like they were manufacturing cargo. "Haulers, have we tried making contact?" asked Councillor Tice, her melodic voice carrying undertones of worry. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding in the treaty translations." Zethkri's expression darkened. "We sent a diplomatic probe 3 cycles ago." The human response was disturbing. They cheerfully confirmed these were their new exploration vessels and invited us to visit for a full tour. They seemed genuinely excited to show off their work. A collective shudder ran through the assembled aliens. In galactic politics, nations only offered tours of their military installations when they wanted to intimidate potential enemies. "The tactical analysis gets worse," continued Admiral Korath, projecting his own data alongside the reconnaissance footage. "Based on their construction methods, these aren't prototype vessels. They're building them on an assembly line, mass production, and according to intercepted communications, they refer to these as medium-class ships. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of translation systems and the nervous chittering of a few species breathing apparatus. If these massive battle fortresses were considered medium-class by humans, what did their heavy warships look like? There's something else, Zethkri added quietly. Our intelligence suggests they've been planning this for much longer than we thought. We found references to these exact ship designs in their entertainment media from decades ago. Movies, games, books all depicting space battles with vessels matching these specifications. The implications hit the Council like a meteor strike. Humanity hadn't just stumbled into advanced shipbuilding. They'd been preparing for interstellar warfare since before they'd even made contact with alien life, every piece of human science. Fiction hadn't been imagination, it had been planning. As the emergency session continued late into the galactic night cycle, one thing became crystal clear. Humanity was no longer the harmless newcomer species they'd welcomed into the galactic community. They were something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Admiral Vorthic's flagship Starlight Dominion led the most impressive fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council. Ships from 12 different species formed a perfect formation. As they approached the edge of human space, the hegemony's best stealth cruisers, the Crystalline Collective's energy-shielded scouts, and the Assini Federation's heavy battle platforms all working together for the first time in galactic history. Remember, Vorthic's gravelly voice echoed through the fleet communications. This is a reconnaissance mission only. We observe, we document, and we leave. No engagement under any circumstances. The Admiral's reptilian features showed the strain of commanding such a delicate operation. Breaking galactic law by entering another species' sovereign space without permission was serious enough to start wars. But the Council had voted unanimously they needed to know what humanity was really building out there. As they crossed into the Sol system, Lieutenant Commander Zara's tentacles danced across her sensor controls, the aquatic nautiloid. Officers' breathing tank bubbled with excitement as readings flooded her displays. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The humans have installations everywhere. Mars orbit, asteroid belt, Saturn's rings. Stay focused on Jupiter. Vorthik ordered. That's where the main construction is happening. But before they could reach their target, something unexpected happened. A cheerful human voice crackled over their communication system. Hey there, Illy and friends. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. Welcome to our neighborhood. We detected your approach about an hour ago. You guys here for the shipyard tour? The entire alien fleet froze. They'd been detected. Their stealth technology was supposed to be undetectable by human sensors. Vorthik exchanged glances with his bridge crew. This wasn't how covert operations were supposed to work. Yes. We are interested in observing your construction projects. Awesome. Follow my ship will give you the full VIP experience. Fair warning though, you might want to keep your distance during the weapons testing. Some of our bigger guns tend to overload alien sensor equipment. A sleek human vessel appeared on their screens. Barely a tenth the size of Vorthic's flagship, it moved with impossible grace, dancing between the alien ships like it was performing some kind of space ballet. The casual way it maneuvered round their supposedly intimidating war fleet made several alien captains nervous. How did they detect us? Whispered Commander Tice over the private channel. Our cloaking systems are generations ahead of their technology. Maybe their technology isn't as primitive as we thought. Vorthik replied grimly. As they approached Jupiter's moons, the true scale of human construction became clear. What looked impressive in reconnaissance photos was absolutely mind-boggling in person. The shipyards stretched across space like floating cities. each one bustling with activity. Thousands of human workers in space suits moved around construction scaffolding that dwarfed most alien space stations. There she is, Captain Morrison's voice beamed with pride. The *US Prometheus *, our latest medium-class exploration vessel. She's almost ready for her maiden voyage. The alien fleet stared in horrified fascination at the human ship taking shape before them. It was enormous, easily 3 times the length of Vorthic's flagship, and probably 10 times the mass. Weapon ports dotted its hull like stars in the night sky. Medium class, squeaked Dr. Vex High, his insect-like features twitching with disbelief. This thing could level a planet's surface in hours. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. Morrison laughed. Want to come aboard? We're testing the defensive systems today. Nothing too fancy, just some basic shield stress tests and point defense calibration against his. Better judgment, Vorthik agreed. To board the human vessel. As their shuttle approached the Prometheus *, the scale became even more overwhelming. The docking bay alone was larger than most alien destroyers. Human crew members greeted them with genuine enthusiasm, offering tours like they were showing off a new car rather than a weapon of mass destruction. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, a small, human woman with grease-stained coveralls, proudly explained the ship's systems. These are our standard defensive pulse cannons, she said, patting a weapon mount casually. Each one can punch through about 50 meters of reinforced titanium. We've got 200 of them scattered round the hull. Admiral Vorthic's translator struggled with the concept. In galactic terms, weapons that powerful were classified as siege equipment tools for cracking planetary fortifications. The humans were calling them basic defense systems. And this is our main shield generator, Rodriguez continued, leading them to a room-sized device that hummed with barely contained energy. It can absorb the equivalent of a small nuclear explosion every few seconds, pretty standard. Staff Commander Grax's bear-like features had gone pale, standard. This single generator produces more defensive power than our entire home fleet combined. Really? Rodriguez looked genuinely surprised. I guess our engineers got a bit carried away with the power requirements. You should see our heavy class ships now. Those things are really something special. The alien delegation exchanged terrified glances. If this was medium class, what horrors awaited them in humanity's heavy warship designs? As the tour continued, each new revelation made the situation worse. The humans casually mentioned having dozens of these ships under construction. They talked about their weapons like garden tools and their defensive systems like household appliances. Most disturbing of all, they seemed genuinely excited to share their technology with their new alien friends. When the tour ended, Admiral Vorthic's fleet retreated to a safe distance to process what they'd witnessed. The humans waved goodbye cheerfully, inviting them back any time for more tours. Send an emergency transmission to the Council, Vorthic ordered, his voice shaking slightly. We're dealing with something far beyond our original estimates. And someone get me a direct line to the Galactic Defense Command. We're going to need to completely rethink our approach to humanity. The emergency council session had been going for 6 straight hours, and tempers were running higher than a solar flare. Admiral Korath's 6 arms gestured wildly as he addressed the assembled delegates, his voice booming through the translation systems. We cannot allow this threat to grow any larger. The humans are building a war fleet that could dominate the entire galaxy. I say we strike now, before they complete their construction. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several species delegations. The Hegemony Defense Force had run combat simulations based on Admiral Vorthic's reconnaissance data, and the results were terrifying. A single human medium-class vessel could potentially defeat entire alien battle groups. But before the vote, could be called, a calm human voice interrupted the proceedings. Excuse me, council members. This is Ambassador Sarah Chenoweth. We've been monitoring your emergency session, and we're a bit confused about all this talk of war fleets and preemptive strikes. The chamber fell silent. Zethkri activated the communication ray, and Ambassador Chen's image appeared on the main display. She looked remarkably relaxed for someone whose species was being discussed as a galactic threat. We understand there might be some confusion about our new ships. Chen continued with a friendly smile. How about we clear this up with a simple demonstration? We can show you exactly what these vessels are designed for. Admiral Korit's reptilian features twisted into a snarl. You want to demonstrate your weapons against us? Oh, nothing like that. Chen laughed. Just some basic maneuvers and system tests. We'll use the *UES Indomitable *. She's our newest prototype. Captain Sarah Chen will be running the demonstration personally. The council exchanged nervous glances. Chen was volunteering to pilot the demonstration herself. Using her own name as both ambassador and captain, either humanity was incredibly confident, or they were completely insane. Very well, Zethkri said cautiously. We'll observe from a safe distance 3 days later. The largest fleet in galactic history assembled in neutral space near the Centauri system. Every major species had sent their most advanced warships, creating a formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, carrier platforms, and siege ships, the combined firepower could have cracked a small moon dot at the center of this impressive display at a single human vessel. The *UES Indomitable * looked like a floating fortress. Its hull was a dark gray metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon ports and sensor rays covered every surface, giving it the appearance of some ancient sea creature covered in spines. Even sitting motionless, it radiated an aura barely contained power. This is Captain Chen aboard the Indomitable *, came the cheerful human voice. Thanks for coming out to watch our little demonstration. We'll start with some basic maneuvering exercises. What happened next defied every law of physics the aliens thought they understood. The massive human ship suddenly moved like a fighter craft, spinning on its axis and accelerating to impossible speeds. It performed barrel rolls that should have torn the vessel apart from centrifugal force. It stopped on a dime, reversed direction instantly, and danced through space like it weighed nothing at all. How is that possible? Gasped Commander Tice, her crystalline from flickering with shock. That ship is larger than a space station. Dr. Vex's highest compound eyes were processing the sensor data as fast as possible. Their inertial dampening systems must be centuries ahead of ours. The G-forces alone should have turned the crew into paste. Now let's test the defensive systems, Captain Chen announced casually. The alien fleet watched in growing horror as the human ship activated its shields. The energy barrier that surrounded the Indomitable * was visible to the naked eye, a shimmering blue-white field that pulsed with incredible power. Then Chen did something that made several alien captains need medical attention. She flew directly into the nearby system's asteroid belt and began ramming into the largest rocks she could find. House-sized asteroids shattered against the human ship's shields like soap bubbles hitting a brick wall. The Indomitable * carved through the debris field without slowing down, its shields flashing brighter with each impact, but never failing. Standard defensive protocols, Chen explained helpfully. These shields can handle pretty much anything. Short of a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon, Admiral Korit's flagship had shields that were considered military-grade marvels. A single asteroid impact would have overloaded them completely. This human ship was treating them like confetti. Okay, now for the fun part. Chen's voice carried a note of excitement. Let's test the weapon systems. Don't worry, we'll aim away from you guys. The asterisk indomitable asterisk rotated to face empty space and began firing. The first salvo consisted of what Chen called standard pulse cannons. Beams of coherent energy lanced out into the void, each one carrying enough power to level a city. The alien fleet's sensors went crazy trying to measure the energy output. "Those are just the light guns," Chen mentioned casually. "Here come the heavy hitters." Larger weapon ports opened along the ship's hull, and the asterisk indomitable asterisk fired what humans apparently considered their main batteries. The energy beams were so intense they were visible across light years. Several alien ships had to adjust their positions to avoid sensor overload. And for the grand finale, Chen announced, "Our experimental Nova cannon. We've never actually tested this thing at full power, so let's see what happens." A massive port opened in the ship's bow, revealing a weapon that looked like it could swallow small moons. The energy build-up was so intense that nearby space began to warp visibly. When the Nova cannon fired, it created a beam of pure destruction that stretched across the solar system. The target, a small uninhabited planet, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not broken apart, completely vaporized down to the atomic level. The alien fleet sat in stunned silence for several minutes. "So anyway," Captain Chen's voice broke. "The quiet, that's what we call basic defensive capabilities. Nothing too fancy, but it gets the job done. Any questions?" Commander Grax's voice was barely a whisper. You just destroyed a planet with a single shot." "Oh, that little thing." Chen sounded genuinely surprised. "That was just a test shot. We weren't even trying to hit anything important." "Is that impressive by galactic standards?" The assembled alien fleet began a very quiet, very careful retreat. Several species immediately began drafting new diplomatic treaties, while others started planning elaborate gift baskets for their new human neighbors. As the demonstration ended, one thing became crystal clear to every species in the galaxy: making enemies of humanity was absolutely not an option. Dr. Kevtai had been the Galactic Council's chief intelligence analyst for over 30 years. But nothing had prepared him for what his team discovered in the depths of human data archives. His multiple eyes darted across holographic displays showing decades of human entertainment, while his assistant, a nervous crystalline named Shendar, compiled the most disturbing intelligence report in galactic history. "Show me the timeline again," Dr. Kevtai commanded, his voice tight with disbelief. Shendar's crystalline form flickered as she activated the chronological display. "The pattern starts approximately 60 Earth years ago, long before humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. They were producing what they called science fiction stories about space combat. The hologram showed thousands of human movies, television shows, books, and games stretching back decades. At first glance, they looked like primitive entertainment, colorful stories about heroes fighting alien invaders or exploring distant galaxies. But the more the intelligence team analyzed them, the more sinister the pattern became. "Look at this." Shendar highlighted a human movie from 40 years ago. They called it Independence Day. The humans portrayed themselves fighting, often alien invasion, using tactics that match exactly what we observed during Captain Chen's demonstration. Dr. Kevtai studied the footage with growing horror. The human movie showed massive alien motherships being destroyed by smaller, more maneuverable human fighters. The tactics, the weapon systems, even the ship designs bore uncomfortable similarities to real galactic military technology. "It gets worse," Shendar continued, pulling up another file. "This is from a human entertainment franchise called Star Trek. They created detailed technical manuals for their fictional starships, complete with weapon specifications, shield frequencies, and combat protocols." The alien intelligence officer examined the human fiction with the eye of a military analyst. What he saw made his blood run cold. The humans hadn't just imagined space battles, they'd wargamed them. Every piece of technology, every tactical scenario, every possible alien threat had been considered and planned for. They have something called Star Wars, Shendar added, her form pulsing with nervous energy. It's been running for over 40 years. The humans have created thousands of hours of content showing space battles between massive fleets. They've detailed every possible combat scenario from fighter engagements to planet-destroying super Apons. Dr. Kevtai pulled up the human military records that had been leaked through diplomatic channels. Cross-referencing them with the entertainment archives revealed a pattern that made his scales crawl. Human military academies had been using their science fiction as training material for decades. Look at this course catalogue from the United States Naval War College, he said. Highlighting relevant sections, they taught classes on speculative warfare and extraterrestrial combat scenarios. The humans were literally training their officers to fight aliens before they knew aliens existed. The investigation deepened, and each new discovery was more disturbing than the last. Human video games weren't just entertainment, they were training simulations. Games like StarCraft taught resource management and fleet tactics. EVE Online was essentially a massive multiplayer training ground for space combat and logistics. Halo trained ground troops for fighting technologically superior alien forces. They've been preparing their entire population for interstellar warfare, Shendar observed, her crystalline voice trembling. Millions of humans have spent decades playing these games, learning combat tactics and strategic thinking without even realizing it. But the most chilling discovery came when they analyzed human military research programs that were supposedly focused on planetary defense or asteroid mining turned out to be weapons development disguised as civilian projects. This is their Project Orion from 50 years ago, Dr. Kevtai said, displaying human technical documents. They were designing spacecraft powered by nuclear explosions. The official purpose was space exploration. But look at these secondary specifications. The Orion Project papers included detailed plans for turning the spacecraft into weapons. Platforms, the same nuclear pulse engines that would power exploration, could launch devastating attacks on planetary targets. It was brilliant, terrifying, and completely typical of human thinking. And here's something called the Strategic Defense Initiative, Shendar added. They told everyone it was for defending against missiles. But the technology could easily be adapted for space-based weapons platforms. The intelligence team discovered that humans had been thinking about space warfare from the moment they looked up at the stars. Every scientific advance, every technological breakthrough, every piece of entertainment had dual uses. They'd created a civilization-wide military-industrial complex disguised as peaceful progress and harmless fun. Look at their internet, Dr. Kevtai said, pulling up data streams from human networks. They have thousands of forums where civilians discuss military tactics, analyze weapon systems, and debate combat strategies. They call it military science fiction fandom. But it's really a distributed think tank for interstellar warfare. The most unsettling part wasn't the weapons or the tactics, it was the mindset. Humans had spent generations imagining every possible way aliens might threaten them. And they'd prepared countermeasures for all of them. They'd considered diplomatic solutions, but they'd also planned for total war. They have contingency plans for fighting energy beings, hive minds, machine intelligences, and interdimensional invaders, Shendar reported. They've literally thought of everything. Dr. Kevtai leaned back in his chair, feeling suddenly very old. The galaxy had welcomed humanity as naive newcomers, primitive beings who needed guidance to join galactic civilization instead. They'd invited the most militarily prepared species in known history to the table. "Compile everything," he ordered warily. "The Council needs to see this. Every species in the galaxy needs to understand what we're really dealing with," as the intelligence report took shape. One fact became undeniably clear. Humanity hadn't stumbled into military superiority by accident. They'd been preparing for galactic warfare since before they knew there was a galaxy to fight for. And now that they were here, they were ready for anything the universe could throw at them. The scariest part, they seemed genuinely surprised that other species found this threatening. The emergency vote was unanimous, something that had never happened in the 3,000-year history of the Galactic Council. Every single species, from the mighty hegemony to the smallest trading guilds, agreed on one thing: humanity needed to be offered a permanent seat at the galactic table before they decided to take it big. Y-Force Ambassador Zethri's hands shook slightly as he transmitted the official offer to Earth. The proposal was unprecedented: immediate council membership, leadership positions in galactic defense, and full voting rights on all interstellar matters. It was the kind of deal that usually took centuries of negotiation and careful diplomacy. The human response came back within hours, and it was quintessentially human in its simplicity. "Wow, thanks. We'd love to help out. When do we start?" 6 months later, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Sarah Chen now held the title of Supreme Commander of Galactic Peacekeeping Forces, a position that had been created specifically for humanity. Her flagship, the *UES Harmony*, was officially designated as a patrol vessel in human fleet terminology, though it was larger than most species' capital ships. The first test of this new arrangement came when the Zephyrian Confederacy started. A border dispute with the Aquatic Collective, what had traditionally been a months-long conflict involving diplomatic negotiations, economic sanctions, and eventually limited military action, was resolved in a matter of days. "This is Admiral Chen to all Zephyrian and aquatic forces," came the calm human voice over all military frequencies. "We're here to help sort out your little disagreement. Could everyone please power down weapons and prepare for mediation?" The *UES Harmony* dropped out of hyperspace between the two fleets, dwarfing both sides combined. Its presence alone made the dispute seem suddenly very unimportant. The Zephyrians, who had been preparing for a glorious military campaign, found themselves staring at a human vessel that could probably vaporize their entire home system without breaking a sweat. "Mediation sounds great," both fleet commanders replied almost simultaneously. Commander Vex High, now serving as the first alien officer aboard a human peacekeeping vessel, watched the proceedings from the *Harmony's bridge with a mixture of admiration and terror. The insectoid officer had volunteered for the cultural exchange program, partly out of scientific curiosity and partly because his government wanted someone to keep an eye on him. Anity's true capabilities. "Is it always this easy?" he asked Captain Morrison, who was Chen's second in command. Morrison, the same cheerful human who had given the Council their first tour of human shipyards, grinned widely. "Pretty much. Amazing how reasonable everyone becomes when you show up with enough firepower to crack a planet. We barely ever have to actually use the weapons." That was true, but only because the mere presence of human peacekeeping forces had revolutionized galactic conflict resolution. The *UES Harmony* alone carried more destructive power than most star systems' entire defense. Grids, when humans offered to help mediate a dispute, both sides suddenly found common ground very quickly. The second major test came when the Hegemony Defense Force reported unusual activity in the Outer Rim. Pirates had been attacking trade routes using stolen military technology, and their raids were becoming increasingly bold. Traditional anti-piracy efforts involved months of patrol missions and careful tracking of criminal networks. The human approach was more direct. "We'll handle this." Admiral Chen announced during the emergency council session, "should be wrapped up by next week." She wasn't exaggerating. The human anti-piracy task force consisted of 3 light patrol vessels, ships that were still larger than most species' dreadnoughts. They swept through the outer rim like a cosmic hurricane, their advanced sensors detecting every hidden base and secret rendezvous point. The pirates, who had been terrorizing the trade routes for years, took one look at the approaching human fleet and immediately surrendered. Most of them had seen the footage of Captain Chen's demonstration and decided that a life sentence in galactic prison was preferable to being vaporized by a Nova cannon. "The pirates have been neutralized," Chen reported matter-of-factly. "We're also detecting some illegal weapons caches and a few slavery operations. Mind if we clean those up too while we're in the neighborhood?" The council's approval was immediate and enthusiastic. Within a year, galactic crime rates had dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history. The simple knowledge that human peacekeeping vessels were patrolling the space lanes made even the most hardened criminals reconsider their career choices. Nobody wanted to explain to their crew why they were picking a fight with a species that considered planet-destroying weapons to be basic defensive equipment. But perhaps the most significant change was in the nature of interstellar diplomacy itself. Trade disputes that had simmered for decades were suddenly resolved through peaceful negotiation. Territorial conflicts that had claimed millions of lives simply evaporated when human mediators arrived on the scene. "It's remarkable," observed Councillor Tice during a quarterly review session. "We're seeing the longest period of galactic peace in recorded history. The humans have brought stability to regions that have been war-torn for centuries," added Dr. Kevtai, who had been promoted to Director of Galactic Intelligence. "Their peacekeeping methods are unconventional, but undeniably effective." The unconventional methods included things like parking a human battleship in orbit round disputed worlds, while diplomatic talks proceeded on the surface. It was hard to argue about mining rights when a vessel capable of turning the entire planet into cosmic dust was floating overhead, operated by beings who genuinely seemed to want everyone to get along. Commander Vexhai had grown comfortable serving aboard human vessels, though he still couldn't quite believe some of the things he witnessed daily. During a routine patrol, he watched human crew members casually perform maintenance on weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. "Doesn't it bother you," he asked Chief Engineer Rodriguez, "that you're working with such incredibly destructive technology?" Rodriguez looked genuinely puzzled. "Destructive? These are peacekeeping tools. We use them to make sure nobody gets hurt." That was the most unsettling thing about humanity's new role in galactic affairs. They truly seemed to believe that their overwhelming military superiority was making the galaxy safer and more peaceful. The terrifying part was that they were absolutely right. As the first year of human galactic leadership came to an end, species across the galaxy had to admit that they'd never felt more secure. Trade flowed freely. Conflicts were resolved quickly, and the constant threat of war had become a distant memory. The galaxy was indeed safer than it had ever been. The fact that this safety was guaranteed by beings who could casually destroy solar systems was something most species tried not to think about too much. After all, the humans seemed friendly enough, and they made excellent neighbors as long as you remembered that their idea of a small disagreement was what everyone else called total annihilation. Sleep came a little less easily to most alien species these days, but that was a small price to pay for the most peaceful era in galactic history.